Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again. This is the YR World video series where YR Foundation are interviewing our users from around the world and discussing with them their lived experience of being an R user, insights about their community and how the community works in various parts of the world, and how their hopes and expectations for the R community and their career as an R user. But it's not just R. We actually will also include other programming languages and other tech communities just to really get a sense of the diversity of the tech community. Today I'm joined by my colleague Deborah. So hello, Deborah.
Hello,
Where are you joining us from, Deborah?
from Galicia in Spain.
Good stuff, in the northwest of Spain, a beautiful
Yeah.
part of the world. Uh, and also, today we're delighted to host Paul Palmes, Dr. Paul Palmes from IBM. How you doing, Paul?
Hello.
Good stuff. Deborah, I'll let you start off there with your questions.
Okay. I'm going to interview Paul. So first, I will ask you, how could you please resume a little bit your career? Where did you start?
Yeah, sure. So I started. I studied applied math,
Mhm.
bachelor's degree, way back in the Philippines, and then when I finished my degree, my department asked me to teach. So I started teaching, and I love teaching. But after a while, they told me that in order to continue staying in the university, I have to study master's degree and PhD. It was never
Mhm.
my target or to study more, but um, um, I just find the opportunity interesting. So I said, okay. And then I choose computer science because I always feel that when people ask me, what's your degree, applied math, and then they did not ask you anything more because, when you say that you're majoring in applied math, it seems like, yeah. But and during that time, computer science was becoming more popular. So I majored in artificial intelligence. So during the time, AI is way primitive. Like it's more of a rule-based approach. And then the opportunity to study in Japan for PhD came in, and they're teaching neural networks, which is the much better version of AI that I learned. So during the time I finished my degree in Japan, I then spent some time, I think 5 years in Japan, 5 years in Singapore, doing a postdoctoral study, and then
Mhm.
went here in IBM for a permanent job in research as a research scientist. So all of this I never had planned. I just say yes to the opportunity, and I'm glad. I'm enjoying the
Well, I'm sure you
opportunity.
also work very hard for those opportunities to come.
Yeah, I would say it's a bit of blessing. I think also because some no matter how much your hard work is, if there's no opportunity or you're not in luck, uh, no matter how much you try, sometimes it it
That's
will
right.
not come. Yeah, so I don't know if I try to look back. It's like, how did it happen? So
Well, that's good to hear. And how did this computer science change in the last 20 years? A lot, only a bit.
come again.
How did the computer science field change in the last 20 years?
Oh wow, that's a very interesting question. If I look back, I started with my computer with a speed of like 8, 16 megahertz. Can
Oh,
you imagine that? With
yeah,
like
no. Well,
64 64 kilobytes of memory, and you have to study your computer science, develop your algorithm, and it takes days to finish because it's just so very slow. But yeah, it's kind of a big. I think it's really accelerated. If you ask me regarding the computer science field, it's really shoot up, and that's what I like with our area, because you are in the process of learning every time. Every time is new stuff, so it's never boring. But you have to be like uh, always catching up,
So
which is
hard
a bit
working.
nice.
Yeah, okay.
If you enjoy it, it seems not. I don't find it really hard work. It's more like you're enjoying the lessons and the skills that you develop. But yeah, I tell you, it's every month, every time you read a lot of this news, like recently, there's a lot of things happening in AI, in
Mm-hmm.
computer science, especially in the industry. The industry is catching up now, so there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I know, I know.
There's a lot of questions.
And what about?
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
No, I was
yeah.
going to sort of
No,
just
you
actually
go.
ask very quickly there that you raised a lot of questions, but one actually short question. Sorry, Deborah. Just when did you discover R?
Wow, that was interesting. I was in Japan during that time because the good thing in Japan is that you seem to live in your lab for the rest of your life. Like we hang out in the lab, like everything. So there was one time that we have so many machines, we have so many extra time. So I was looking at I was using Debian, and Debian is a community distribution. And most of the researchers around Japan and around the world, those who are doing research are using Debian. So I was asking myself, what is the most number of packages in Debian that is very, very popular? And then when I look at it, R has like more than 100 packages. R, CRAN, R, blah, blah, blah. I said, what is this language? What is this package? Why the community of Debian who are doing research is using this, is installing this? And then when I look at it, wow, I said, wow, this is huge. Like I suddenly changed all my data analysis with R. And it was during 2000, I was doing my research in Japan 2003, 2004. That was way back then. And Debian packages are like 6 DVDs during the time. And
Well,
it's a big chunk of R is there. So it's just told me that, wow, this community, I think they know that this tool set is very, very important. And I think
okay.
one of the major packages that you can see there is either Python, Perl, and R. These are the three languages, which I think it's still popular. I think the Perl language was disappeared a little bit, but before it was the language of bioinformatics also. I think it was superseded by Python, but R is still a big thing until now, I think.
Okay, and I would like to ask you if the Asian data science community, if you think it's integrated into the global data science community.
That's a nice question because when I finished my PhD, I was so pumped up. I said, okay, I'd like to go back to Philippines to teach again because I learned a lot. I learned a lot of these things. So when I returned, I returned to the university and they were asking me, Paulito, do you want to teach an elective? I said, yes. I have so many new things to introduce, and then I was teaching a fourth year bachelor students in computer science and master students. And I was thinking, okay, let me introduce to them data mining using
Mm-hmm.
R. And
Mm-hmm.
during the time, R in data mining in the Philippines, the computer science, when you talk about computer science, it's all Java programming in business. It
Mm-hmm.
never occurred to them that to become a computer scientist, you can also apply your computer science to answer questions like diagnosis of diseases or predicting weather pattern and so on. So when I introduced the R data mining, the master students and the advanced courses students in computer science were very amazed. Like I gave them some projects like, okay, you go to hospital, gather data, and let's analyze some patterns of the patients. You go to the university, get some enrollment data sets, and let's analyze the patterns of the courses they have. And all of this, they use R for data analysis and so on. And some of my students approached me and told me like, wow, I think we want to do to pursue a PhD for this, because we just realized that our skill set can answer a lot of questions in society, or for example, can provide solutions to societal problems like pollution or healthcare and so on, because you can use this computer science to predict some patterns and so on. So I think I had 3 or 4 of them finish their PhD, so it was a good, I would say, feeling. And then there was an exit kind of interview among the 4th-year students, because they are graduating, and they asked, which subject do you think is the most popular that we have to offer next semester? And my subject was the was the winner. So I said, wow, now that I'm leaving for my postdoc, I felt guilty, because I can no longer teach the subject. But I think one of my students who I think graduated and became a teacher took over. So it was a great feeling
Yeah,
during
it's
that
a
time.
nice story.
Yeah, but during that time, data mining and R is not really popular in Asia during that time. Even the idea of data science it was not yet very popular during that time.
And do you think it is now, or do you think it's still popular
Yeah,
or more popular in Europe?
yeah, because I think one big thing that really changed a lot is because of the bioinformatics became popular there, as well as molecular biology. These courses requires a lot of this computational machinery, like sequencing and so on, which basically related to data mining also. And my sister is the director of genome, and a lot of our students are doing a lot of this biosequencing and so on. And IBM, I think, is one of the companies that provide the hardware for them. So I think right now, I'm not really very familiar right now what's going on in the Philippines, because I spend most of my time outside. But when I talk to my sister, we're always talking about research, and yeah, they're doing a lot of this data mining stuff, most
Nice,
particularly in biology.
nice. And then a question about language, since both me and you are not like native English speaker. Do you think there is a language issue when English is not your first language, or do you think that's not really a big issue?
For us Filipinos, we're lucky because when after the World War II, I think the Japanese invaded our country, and then Americans during the World War II took over our country for a while. So they changed our constitution, even our educational system. They became American system. So from the elementary to college to university, our language and instruction is English. So that was a helpful to us. And then when I think Singapore is also a British colony, so English was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other countries, when I studied in Japan, like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, um, um, and many other Asian countries, yeah, English is not their first language. So there was, I think it's a big adjustment to them. That's true.
Okay. But do you think it's an easy thing to solve like this issue, or do you think it takes some time to get into
I would
the?
I would say that during the time when the internet was not yet very ubiquitous, it was a big problem. During my time when I studied in Japan, I could barely actually understand some of my colleagues, Asian, because
Okay.
the diction and the way they speak pronounce the language is a little bit difficult to understand. But I think eventually, if you look at right now, because everybody has internet, it's a big kind of way of equalizing things, because they can now access directly. Uh,
Yeah.
the fun is quite funny, because I think many countries, it's because of the language problem. the movies in Americans were translated and dubbed to their own language. In the Philippines, we were lucky because we watch movies, American movies directly, so there was no dubbing or subtitles. So
Yeah.
we were lucky in that sense.
Yeah, that you're right. Because in Spain they also doubled a lot of movies, so it took me a while to hear the real voices. So I know
That's
that
true.
shock. I already have that one.
So yeah, the privilege I had
Yeah.
because we watch movies. Whenever they cannot pick up the meaning, they will always ask me, "Paulito, what was that? What was that?" Because I was so what you call it, exposed to the American culture because we watch American movies all the time. So because you need to understand some context when you watch movie, like the expression, sometimes only one word, but if you don't know the culture, you will not know the joke and so on. So it's a lot of things.
Nice. So I think this kind of my last questions. If you have any career advice to your students pursuing, something in data science or computer science, you have a lot of experience and a big career,
Yeah,
so maybe.
to me, number one is really you need to have the passion. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you really love computer science or tinkering with computer, it's it it becomes so. No matter how hard it is, it's not hard. It's like you persist. But if you have no passion, after 3 hours, I still don't get it. Then you give up. But to me, when I was studying mathematics, I think it's similar to computer science or data science and so on. The first 3 hours of reading the book, it doesn't mean anything to me. And I know that. That's the reason why once you know this, no, I just have to read again. I sleep. When you wake up, because I tell you, your brain takes a lot. It's like digestion also. It takes time. But
Yeah.
one day you will just realize, oh, I get it now. And you don't know when it will happen. It's just little by little. So I
Mm-hmm.
read a lot. I read many times. So the thing is, I think if you're programming, sometimes it's not flowing yet. So just practice. It's like
Mm-hmm.
riding a bicycle the first time you
Yeah.
fell down, and then after a while, it's just flow. You don't even know how did it happen, right? When you learn to ride a bicycle, it can be 3 days, 5 days, 4 days, but after a while, it
Yeah.
just happened, and you don't even remember when did this happen.
Yeah,
And I think
it's true.
that's all. It's like you have to develop the muscle memory. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when I ask you to spell things and you're used to writing something, it's easy
Mm-hmm.
to spell with your hand.
Yeah,
But
that's
without your
right.
hand, you just do like this. It's more difficult to spell something because you did not practice spelling without your hand. So
That's true.
writing your brain is transferred to your hand when you're doing programming also when solving mathematics. I will
Mm-hmm.
always even think that when I solve sometimes in math or programming, I don't even think my hand just moved. And
Yeah.
it's amazing because after a while when you solve math, you're looking at it and then your hand is just moving. Like when you type, it's a very good example. When you type
Mm-hmm.
letters and you don't even think of it, you just feel the letter and then it will come out
Oh,
the
shit.
correct letter, right? So I think that is the same thing when you try to study math, computer science, or anything. You have to do it over and over again until it becomes automatic. It's the same with tennis players, basketball
Mm-hmm.
players. They hit the ball until such time that you don't even think about it. It will
Okay.
just flow.
Yeah,
And
that's a nice advice.
yeah, so I think you need, they say in a book like a blink or some, they say that you need, I think Steve Jobs also said, or somebody, who you need 10,000 hours at least. You have to spend 10,000 hours in that particular skill set in order to become a master. And then people will say, you're a genius. And you don't even know that you're a genius because it's just automatic to you. It's nothing actually. It's not a genius. It's just because you do this all over and over again. people who did not do, people who did not spend 10,000 hours will think of you like you're really excellent. And that is, I think, there's no shortcut. I think, like programming. After a while, you become very good in programming. But no, there's no shortcut for that. They spend hours for that.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Very nice.
Thank
That's a
you.
nice advice.
I got
So
a few
Kevin,
questions. Yeah, hi there. Sorry, yeah, I've got a few questions. Just actually, I'm very interested in the community, the data science communities in Asia Pacific. How did they self-organize, or are there, like, for example, our user groups or PyCon conferences, or does it work differently there?
That's a good question. I'm not affiliated to any one of them, but one thing that I know is that there are a lot of what do you call this, conferences in Asia regarding uh, neural information processing, and I think I my big boss before in Japan, we are is one of the main organizer, and I think this is related to data mining now, but during the time we don't call it data mining, data science or data thing. It's basically information processing thing,
Yeah.
and I think it evolved from that, and then it becomes now data mining. In the Philippines, I think I'm not sure because the meta is a recent phenomenon also. Like
Okay.
the only thing before that you can connect with people that are interested with this kind of area is through conferences.
Mm,
And we have Asian conferences like this, applied math,
yeah.
uh, uh, I think once or twice a year.
Okay. Paul, have been familiar with R for a long time. Are you still using R, or how has your career changed in that respect? Now,
Oh,
we
R is
already know the
my,
answer because we already had you on to do a webinar about R and Julia. But just right now, where are you with R?
as a mathematician, I would consider myself as a mathematician. For me, the language of math, the programming language that I would always use is R because I find it a very mathematical language. Like if you're a mathematician, you always want to say things in a very, very small, very, very short line. In R, I can do a lot of things in just maybe 5 lines or 10 lines of code. That's a big thing for me because I don't want to spend so much time reading a very verbose code when it can be done in a very shorter way. And R has a lot of this formula kind of thing, like
Mm,
when you try to model
mm,
like 3 liners of code. That's it. And I use R a lot in prototyping, rapid prototyping, because if I have an idea, I can implement in R immediately, like in seconds or minutes, because you don't really have to spend a lot of this object orientation, a lot of wrapping and so on. You can just do line by line. But of course, I switch to Julia if I need to do a lot of this, what do you call this, big computation. So I use both of these languages complementary to each other. I start with rapid prototyping in R, and then if I can see that okay, this idea works, let's formalize this to a programming language like Julia, which is more of with that data typing with all this construct that is really programming language.
good stuff. To clarify to everyone, Paul did a webinar for YR where he demonstrated how to mix the workflows of R and Julia into a single data analysis pipeline. I think that's very powerful. And just if you want to just do a quick recap on your key themes there.
Yeah. So the nice thing about R is that it's really meant for data analysis. Like the language in itself, there's no multiple personality when you say R. It's really focused for statistical data analysis. any data manipulation routine. Python and I think Julia, the pandas in Python, the Julia data frames, they are all inspired by our data frames. A lot of these new languages implementation from others, they really come from the idea of R, the formula base of modeling also. So what I like with R is that you can use it for a lot of this data manipulation very, very fast, quickly. So you can easily see your what you want to do in a shorter line of code, and then switch to Julia for other stuff that are modern stuff. Because let's 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 accept that R is not a new language. It was developed 30 years ago, maybe, when our computers are single threaded, single cores.
Mm.
So a lot of this technology of R was the context of its development is during the time when distributed computing is not yet there. So now with Julia, which is 5 or 12, 7 years old kind of language, it started from the premise that you have multi-cores, you have distributed computing, you have cloud computing. So what kind of language should we develop? Yeah, let's develop this thing that embraces all this new stuff. So that's why I switched between the two of them, because each one of them has a specific kind of purpose. One is for statistical, for real data manipulation, data mining stuff, and the other for high scientific computation stuff. And
Mm.
I won't say that Julia can replace R, because R has its own focus and niche.
That's correct. Actually, recalling that webinar, we discussed the fact that if you are an R user, but you are transferring to, let's say, using Julia or using Python, there is a way that you can still use all of your skill set and utilize all of your skill set, even when you go to that sort of new working environment, that new framework.
Actually, you should not forget the skill set, because the R language was developed by statistical people,
Yeah.
and the workflow of statistics is very, 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 very what do you call this, organized.
Mm.
Like in R, you will see the p values, you will see the output that is really statistical. When you analyze data set, you are not only interested with mean, you need to know the standard deviation, you need to know the post-hoc test, you need to know the follow-up other tests, and all of these are found in R. It's not just as a language that is not well developed. It's really well developed to fill in all the pictures. If you're doing a lot, I'm not. I don't know for those computer science people who focus only on computer science. But if you're in statistical computing, in applied math, you will appreciate this, because the statistical area, which I think is the first one to develop the idea of the importance of data analysis, is there. Like this also sometimes hurted me, or what do you call this, make me sad. Like statistics is not really sometimes well appreciated. When you go to quantum theory, they will call it like Heisenberg principle of what do you call this, uncertainty. It's just probability. Like the Schrodinger cat, like whether the cat is dead or alive, it's just probability. And they call this Heisenberg principle and all this other naming just to avoid calling it as it is.
It sounds better in sci-fi shows on television. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
and the problem with that is that through this labeling, you basically forgotten the history, the people who created this,
Yeah.
the probability people. It's the same with chemistry. It's always second fiddle. He always plays a second fiddle to physics. That a
Okay.
lot of a lot. It's the same with deep learning. Now people thought that deep learning is a new thing, and then they forgot that all of this effort in artificial neural network, backpropagation, and all of this is way, way back then. So I think we should try. We should. For me, we should be careful in, in making attribution to those people who spend a lot of effort to develop the foundation.
Okay, true.
Mhm.
One of my key subjects of conversation is the importance of linear algebra in that conversation as well.
Yes.
Paul, just actually, we have discussed this before, that language wars, R versus Python versus Julia. I know you're laughing because it's sort of, what's your take on that there? I think you disapprove of the whole concept of language wars.
To me, my hobby is really learn a programming language. So I would say that I love Julia more than Python maybe right now, but it's not because Python is not good, it's just your choice. But I learned all of them. Like if you ask me how many languages I learned now, maybe let's say at least 15, because
Okay.
it's just a hobby for me. Because to me, the good thing about learning a language, it's like a culture also. Learning Python, it tells you the mindset of attacking problems in a Python's way.
Mm-hmm.
Learning R gives you the mindset of attacking the problem in the R's way. In each of the language has their own kind of bias. And sometimes that bias is important to a particular problem. That's why in some of my workflow, I use R because I know Julia cannot beat R in this workflow. Why should I why should I force myself to apply Julia when I can do it in R in maybe 3 lines of code? Why should I, you know, to me at the end of the day, I just want to test if my idea works. So I
Mm.
can mix and match different languages as long as I can get my answer immediately. Because that's the main point. You're a scientist. If there's a question, if there's a hypothesis, the first thing that you have to do is find out whether the hypothesis is true or not
Yeah.
Mhm.
as soon as possible. So to me, learning these languages is a plus. It's not like I should learn Python and then Julia is bad, so I want to learn it. If you have the time, I encourage you to learn Rust, C, C++, Perl, and so on, because it's not a negative thing. It's sometime in the future, it's always connecting the dot. Why am I learning Perl and then after a while, oh yeah, I can use this. It's like thinking of this like you have so many toolboxes, and then you don't know when to use it, but you have that toolbox
Yeah.
that you can later use, and that's the beauty of all these things, because you will never know when that particular skill set will be needed. And the good thing about this is that you will never be in a wall like you are stumped. And that is, I think, one of the my advisor in Japan mentioned, because some of his students, he said that if he has a problem and they cannot solve it, they give up because you don't have enough tool set.
Mhm.
Whereas if you have so many experiences, if you are in a wall, you said, yeah, that's just one problem. I can approach it in another one, another one.
Mm.
So you always have this kind of options. It's never just one.
Excellent. Yeah, good stuff. I think that covers all of the main sort of talking points, actually. So thanks very much, Paul. It's great that you're able to join us, and we'll hopefully see you again very soon in the YR series of events. Also, thank you to Deborah, who's joining us. This is her first time doing an interview, but hopefully it won't be the last.
No.
A quick word, Deborah. How did you find doing your first interview?
Well, I was a bit nervous, but I think it went pretty well.
It did, didn't it? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it went pretty well.
yeah. You asked some excellent question, and
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that we can inspire some students to learn more about data science, computer science, research,
Great
and
Okay.
stuff.
R.
Okay, well, that's great. I think we'll leave it there, folks. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, you're
And hopefully,
welcome.
we'll have some more of these episodes soon. If you're an R user from around the world, and particularly if you're new to R and are only learning R very recently and you're early in your journey in learning R, or actually even some other programming languages, and anywhere in the world, South America, Pacific Islands, the Arctic tundra, anywhere, we would love to get in contact with you and hear your point of views and your insights. So that's great. I think we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That went very well. I'm happy.